Oh. Justin Roiland. Hey, what are you doing here?
I'm always here, Dan. You know that.
Well, I guess, yeah, but you don't usually stand all the way up.
I know, but that's because I gotta get going, Dan. I can't live in your shower anymore like I always do.
Where are you going, buddy?
I gotta get back to work, Dan. We both do. See you soon, Dan, at the workplace. We gotta get back.
All right, let's start this thing. Welcome to Cordkillers, the show that teaches you how to watch what you want, when you want, on whatever device you choose. I'm Brian Brushwood, and you just saw both Dan Harmon and Justin Roiland live from their shower announcing one of the biggest deals in Adult Swim history. Joining me live running the board, as always, is Bryce Castillo. Bryce, how you doing, man?
I'm good. How are you, Brian?
Good. So you had not seen that announcement, but you had run across the announcement of the deal, right?
That's right. Yeah, it's a huge deal. We'll talk about it a little later on in the show.
Yeah, but meanwhile, we are joined from oneofus.net. Oneofus.net.
Yeah, we
Mr. Chris Cox.
Couldn't get that .com. Ever since we started, it's been a coming soon, a dating site.
You got to show up on their doorstep and say, like, I think it's time.
No one is going to be dating on this site.
One of us.
Yeah. One of you. Like, look, I bought oneofyou.org. Will you accept a trade? All right, let's go ahead and kick things off with our primary target. Hey, Bryce,
Hey.
we got a number of emails. Normally, we get like, 15, 20, 50 different emails of all kinds of subjects.
Sure.
This time, we got a billion emails,
Oh.
and they were on exactly two. One,
Okay.
we're going to have in the emails, and 99% of the rest were about the fact that SyFy canceled The Expanse.
This is a shame because The Expanse was critically acclaimed for SyFy.
Yeah, it's the best sci-fi since Battlestar Galactica, in my opinion. And IMDb, I think they had like an 8.6 or something insane, like just behind Westworld. Apparently, did you watch The Expanse, Chris?
I watched the first episode.
Oh no!
Yeah.
Oh, you
So
can't get anything on the first episode.
This is on me, guys. Sorry. I stopped watching it. This is my fault. I take the hit for this one. I totally apologize.
We've talked about this on the show before, whereas Battlestar Galactica is a very human sci-fi drama. This one's very world-based, or at least, that's the way I read it.
World building?
Yeah. In a very believable, plausible 22nd century world. Critically, I can't think of any sci-fi that is as beloved as it in the last 10 years. Unfortunately, I guess the ratings took a dip. Was it a big dip, Bryce, or did the articles mention?
I don't know that the articles mentioned the ratings for The Expanse specifically. We got a quote from NBC Universal executive Chris McCumber, who said, who called it a difficult decision. Deadline says the decision was driven by the fact that SyFy got no digital rights, combined with slightly lower ratings. Alcon, the production company that makes the show, says it's going to shop it around. In a related note, last September, Dark Matter's creator Joseph Malazzi explained on his blog that one of the factors causing SyFy to cancel Dark Matter was that SyFy didn't own all of the rights and is moving forward toward owning all of their shows on the network. For Dark Matter, Malazzi's blog post mentioned that season over season, Dark Matter only lost about 10% of its audience, where these networks expect it to be 25%. But because SyFy didn't own all the rights, they said, just kill it.
Just kill it.
Dark Matter being canceled is the one that pissed me off. Because I was deeply into that show.
One more quote comes from Chat Realm's own Open Bayou that says, quote, SyFy views it as the expense.
Okay.
No.
Yeah. It was an expensive
nice.
show to shoot. It was
Right. So it's expensive to make. And I think part of the reason that we wanted to make this our primary target is talking about like how much of this cancellation is due not to it being a fantastic property that had lots of room to grow, but instead is just a matter of a lot of these networks want to have, as they're called, 360 deals, where it's like they want to be able to own it, monetize it in a billion different ways. They want to be able to make the SyFy universe MMORPG in 5 or 6 years. And the fact that this is just made by an independent creator, what do you think that means looking forward? Do you think that because on the one hand, we have, for example, we're in the middle of watching Avengers Infinity War, which only could happen and almost did not happen the way we saw it because of because Disney didn't own everything universally. They had to license parts of it. And on the one hand, we have a piece of art that only could exist with an all-encompassing giant corporate deal. But then we have another property like this because they wouldn't give SyFy everything to it. Right. It would seem, and of course, this is all speculation on our part. There might be behind-the-scenes deals that we don't know, but it certainly looks from the outside as though if SyFy owned all of The Expanse, we'd be seeing an awful lot more of The Expanse.
Well, there's been kind of a tradition of the savvy creator who wants to keep a hold of those digital rights, and I suspect that all comes back to Trey Parker and Matt Stone, who famously signed a deal that didn't give them the hugest amount of money up front for South Park, but they had exclusive digital and streaming rights, which at the time the networks were like, okay, boy, we sure suckered them.
South Park was one of the first shows you could stream online on their SouthParkStudios.com.
Yeah,
and it was just that.
Even before that, you go back to if you read what's Chris's last name? How Star Wars Conquered the Universe. You know, that deal that George Lucas got, where he took less upfront money and no help, and just said, just let me sell toys. And they're like, sure, sell toys. We'll see what that yields you. Turns out it yielded, later a multi-billion-dollar franchise that sold to Disney.
And in terms of the SyFy channel, they were desperate in need of reinventing themselves, I think, because they had gone through a long period of being kind of the jokey sci-fi channel. It was either really crappy movies or shows that were pretty good, but they were good in a sort of tongue-in-cheek, laughable sort of way, like Eureka and things like that.
Sure,
right?
but
Warehouse 13.
They were also the home of Battlestar Galactica, right?
Right, which was their one
hard sci-fi
flagship, if you will, show. Although it ended very badly, I'm just saying.
You know what? I look, at that point, when the bill came due, I was happy to pay for as much as I got out of that.
But you know how they sort of canceled all their shows at the same time?
Yeah.
That's because a whole new team came in and was running the SyFy channel. Mm-hmm. And they started a whole bunch of new shows at the same time as well, including Dark Matter was one of those shows, and The Expanse was one a little bit later. What's the one with the Western... Winona something.
Oh, Winona Earp.
Yeah, Winona Earp.
Oh, that's
stuff
right.
like that. There's another one that's based on a pre-existing property.
They've got The Magicians right now.
Yeah, The Magicians
Krypton
is my favorite thing on there.
Yeah.
I freaking love it.
Well, and we actually reported last year about this time during upfronts that SyFy had rebranded itself again, or had a new brand image, and was touting The Magicians, and they had announced Krypton, which had not premiered yet.
Which apparently nobody likes, but I haven't seen. So
supposedly better ratings than The Expanse this season.
Really? Okay.
So,
well, I mean, that's what you get with superheroes right now. But the point being is, I wonder, and all of these things are based on licenses that belong to someone else, and I seriously doubt they gave up total license. Here, you get everything to SyFy Channel. I think it was part of just, we just need to have this for long enough for people to think of the SyFy Channel brand in a different way.
Yeah, and that is one of those things where it's like, when you're an established brand that's around for a long time, it makes sense to spend money for preservation plays, where it's like, you think about it in terms of like working out, like even if you do a half-assed workout, it's better than no workout at all if you're trying to preserve whatever musculature you build. Yeah. So here's my question to you guys. Is this an indication that independent creators, or that people or complicated IPs are going to become more rare in a world where Netflix is able to snap their fingers, throw $100 million in the air and say, now we're going to do this, or Amazon is able to snap their fingers and say, yeah, we'll pay all the money on the planet for the leftovers of the Lord of the Rings franchise. Does this mean that is this a harbinger that we're going to encounter more and more of the same established? Is this a trending to blue chip status, or does this mean people are going to take fewer risks?
I mean, studios are already starting to do that theatrically, to be sure. Like, more and more the big studios have been going, look, we're not making as many little films. We're doing much less films every year and more big tentpole productions, because ultimately that's where they're making their big money. They can't get their little romantic comedy to make $300 million in China, but a Pirates of the Caribbean movie inexplicably will.
Right. Yeah.
So I think a TV network at some level might be kind of looking at that model and going, hey, maybe if we spend more time and put more of our eggs in one basket on a thing.
So what about this? Like now let's take a moment and focus on the creative team, the geniuses behind The Expanse. If you were going to put $20 on the table would you bet that this is flat out the last we see of The Expanse? Or do we believe it's going to find a home online somewhere? And if so, do we have a favorite?
So I think Netflix has come out and said that they've passed on The Expanse, but Amazon has the current streaming rights for The Expanse's library. So it would make sense if that's where it ended up being shopped to.
Also, weird that this, we're halfway through the season, right? Maybe not the ideal time for SyFy to let this information get out.
Well, it's upfronts. So like it's the
So
same
they
thing that
have to.
happened-
This is just the one time that
right.
they have to.
They're
Okay.
going to say, "Hey, advertisers, this is not going to be on the menu next year," which is a bummer.
What a bummer for the Expanse team.
Well, all of the hubbub about it, the fact that we're even talking about this as our primary target, is a good sign that the show will get picked up by somebody. And I think we saw over the weekend. We'll talk about this a little later, but Brooklyn Nine-Nine got picked up within 24 hours of it being announced that it was canceled.
Yeah, and
that's a big network show. The Expanse is critically acclaimed for SyFy, very well rated. I think it's just going to need some time for some deal to be negotiated.
I mean, possibly it might be one of those shows that's smart for one of the smaller networks to look into picking up as well. You know?
Smaller than SyFy? I thought SyFy was a smaller.
Well, but you know,
Just Psy.
Sci-fi.
You just Psy.
Yeah, just Psy.
Psy and Fire fighting over it.
I mean, somebody like Freeform.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Might be smart. Where it's like, oh, well, then there's going to be a set fan base that already knows they love this thing.
Oh, that's
willing
rough
to come over
though,
and
because
pay
then
for
you
it.
run into the situation of budget cuts, and you see a cheaper version of it, and they're just squeezing more and more of the time, and it gets rougher and rougher around the edges.
It does weird me out every time a show gets canceled and inevitably the fan base comes out and goes, no, we demand you pick it up again, or somebody else does. There's always a slew of people tweeting going like, come on guys, that's not going to happen. And I'm like, it happens all the time. Like, I don't,
Well,
I
it
don't
almost makes me wonder if the people saying it's not going to happen are secretly, doing their part. Like, oh, somebody's got to tell them that it'll never happen. Somebody has to play
It
the
has
bad
to
guy
be
on this.
A flame war is not fought by one side.
By one side, right? Like, if everybody agrees, then you have Firefly. Well, everybody agreed Firefly should come back, and it never came back. What if somebody was like, no way, Firefly was bad, and you should feel bad. It should never come back.
Well, we kill that guy.
Yeah.
And there was a report, I want to say about a month or so ago, from one of these data companies that said, hey, Netflix, what's working for Netflix right now is science fiction, and Netflix will see this and make more science fiction. Between Stranger Things doing really well,
So,
Altered
again,
Carbon.
we run into one of those.
But this is speculation.
This might be one of those cases where, like, in a world where people weren't so focused on owning all of their rights to everything, then The Expanse would be more welcome. If this happened 5 years ago, The Expanse would be more welcome on Netflix. But instead, Netflix has pretty much indicated, look, we only do deals where we own everything.
Yeah.
And it sounds, and that's why The Expanse got dumped from SyFy, or at least we're speculating that,
Yeah.
right? So that same impulse is preventing it from showing up on Netflix.
They've also commented they're not interested in picking up someone else's scraps, essentially. They're just like,
or
"We
at
don't
least
really
not being
wanna-"
known for doing that.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Sure.
I can see Amazon doing it, but
By the way, Arrested Development coming in 2 weeks, season 5.
But now it doesn't feel like scraps anymore, right?
No,
Now it
it's
feels
not.
like a singular achievement that they have.
did you guys see them here in town this weekend?
No, I
Did they do
wanted
a
to
thing
go.
here?
Yeah,
they
they
had
were
a
in
big
here.
meetup and a big Never Nude parade.
Oh, that's right. We
Yeah.
heard about the event.
Yeah, I think they were giving out free Bluth company hats and bumper stickers and
Oh, that's
stuff.
right. They were also doing a tour of the stair car and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Watch for riders.
Watch for
on.
hop-ons.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to get
That's what they
hop-ons.
called them. Yeah. But I'll tell you what. If you want to hop on the hype train and
Nice.
make this
See what
thing
you did
happen, regardless. Did you guys notice that Tom Merritt's not here?
What?
He's out on
When did that
assignment.
happen?
No
You
one-
know what? We're
no
still
one
having
noticed.
a show. We're having a show thanks to our 1,493 patrons contributing over $1,500 an episode. We cannot thank you guys enough for keeping us loud, live, and independent. Just over 4 years ago, you guys transformed our lives, and we cannot be more thankful. All kinds of extras. You get a special RSS feed where you get both the show, the spoiler in time, and the after talk segment.
That's right,
all
brand new.
In one, which people are saying really nice things in after
Yeah,
talk.
I'm really glad. After talk is like, after we shut down the stream, we'll just talk for another like 10 minutes or something.
We
and
say
just
10
record it.
minutes, but lately it's been like 15, 20.
So did the top Patreon people, do they get a dream date with Tom?
Yeah, you know what? That's what he's doing right now.
He's on
he's
it.
actually he's
Finally
dating.
paying
Yeah,
out,
somebody
yeah.
was down in Australia. And he was like, that Aussie, I owe him.
All right, mate.
They're slow dancing. They're waltzing Matilda right now. No,
You just
no.
pulled out every single typical Australianism.
Shrimp on the Barbie. That's not a knife.
That episode of The Simpsons.
Knifey spoony.
And also, if we hit 1850 patrons or dollars per episode, we'll begin
right.
the Spoiler in Time project, where we take out the old episodes of Spoiler in Time, chop them up by show, and create individual feeds for individual shows. So if you want to watch The Shield with Tom and Brian, we would have an RSS feed just for that follows their watch through right along with you. So
Yeah.
one more time, patreon.com/Cordkillers.
Meanwhile, let's dive into how to watch. So, Bryce, I'm reading here that Google gave developers an 8 gigabyte 4K Android TV dongle called ADT2, runs Android P, which includes autofill for passwords, auto install of apps from other Android devices tied in the same account. The idea is to give developers the dongle to encourage them to make apps for Android TV. I thought Android TV was dead. I thought it was dead, and that Chromecast destroyed it and took all its money and ran away laughing.
The NVIDIA Shield would probably...
Sorry.
The NVIDIA Shield would probably be the only counter argument to that, which runs some clean version of Android TV.
Sure.
And yeah, Google is really trying to push Chromecast. So it's weird, the idea that Google might make their own Android TV box. They've been pimping the idea of Android TV so much, but between Apple and Roku and Amazon, there's a lot of competition now, and Google is somehow late to this game.
Well, and I think what they wanted to do with Android TV to begin with is similar to what they did, of course, with the Android on the mobile space, which is the PC to the Mac, right? It's like, when you say a Mac, everyone knows you bought it from Apple. When you say PC, well, who did you buy it from? There's 35 different other people.
What'd you get? What are your specs? This, that, and the other.
Exactly. That's what they wanted to. They wanted to make the same play, and it worked as far as mobile phones. Android, there are more Androids than iOS, right?
Globally,
Yeah.
it's about 50-50. In America, Apple's higher.
Really?
I
I
believe.
thought it was a lot more.
Wait, what? It was at one point.
I know. I haven't
yeah.
looked into it for a while. Maybe it's time for me to switch finally. I don't know.
Well, so it seems like they were like, well, let's try to make the same play. It worked once before, but for whatever reason, I don't know if it's the fact that there weren't enough purchasers and the marketplace was filled with a few dominant players. They weren't just up against the one iOS. They were up against, iOS TV and Roku and
Amazon Fire,
TiVo and all of these different players. Yeah. It seemed definitely like they weren't able to get a foothold, although they did very, very well with the Chromecast because it was dead simple. Like, you already have an Android devices that played to their strength, right? It's like if you have an Android device or even an iOS device.
You don't have to make a separate app, just support Chromecast, which is already built on Miracast, I believe.
Right.
So a lot of support already existed for that.
And it was all dirt cheap to get it over there, right?
Can I ask you guys this? I don't have a Roku. I have an Apple TV. I don't use it. It's an old one. Somebody gave it to me. My wife uses it in the bedroom. But I use a PlayStation for all the apps. And then if I want to hook my computer up to the TV, I just hook it up with an HDMI cable.
The difference is,
what's the advantage of getting one of these?
If you are a gamer, then what you're doing is entirely sensible because you already have a gaming device of some variety. But if you're my father-in-law, then you do not have a PlayStation, you do not have an Xbox, and the idea of spending $100, $200, $300, $400 for any of that stuff sounds insane.
Plus having a controller instead of a traditional remote.
Okay.
If you're outside of that ecosystem, it might be a tough call for that.
That was my question, because I wasn't sure if there was some advantage I was missing. I'm just not hearing. And in answer to your question, it's a miracle I'm here instead of playing God of War right now.
That's what I hear, man. God of War is getting all the upvotes.
But even for the console versions of these apps, the YouTube app is based on a TV app that YouTube uses on all of their devices, pretty much. Netflix is on par with the other version of apps. Hulu is on par with the other apps on other platforms. So console is also another contender.
All right, so I'm doing good then.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, and that's part of the reason that they're struggling so hard is that it is a very, very diverse marketplace. I know that we've talked about this on the show multiple times. I watch everything on the desktop PC because I happen to have these gigantic monitors in the studio, but of course not everyone has that. Other people, I think,
peasants.
A story that we're coming up on is that Rokus are now being installed in half of all new televisions coming out here.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So the fact why would you bother to buy this device if you already have quote unquote a player built in? You just, granted you have to go through the setup, but after that you're able to, have everybody watch everything. Yeah. So it makes sense that they would have to get aggressive, but it does surprise me that they're fighting so hard for the Android TV brand, because it doesn't seem to me like it would be their dominant move, given, or maybe.
Well, and that's the thing, is that this device is not branded as anything. This is a developer device. So it's not being called an Android TV, though it is being called ADT, Android TV, maybe.
ADT2,
ADT2,
sequel of ADT1.
Home security system, right?
Yeah.
So it could be a thing where they say, oh, this is now the Chromecast TV. And because Google, remember, what was it, a year or two ago, where Google renamed Chromecast to just Cast?
Yeah,
Google
that's
Cast,
right.
And they changed it back because it didn't
Yeah.
land. They're not going to get the branding right. I almost am certain they're not going to get the branding right.
They're not great. And meanwhile, take a look at the actual shape of it. That thing, if you told me that was a Chromecast, I would absolutely believe you. Why? Because it looks exactly like a Chromecast.
It does.
It's just a Chromecast, all in black.
I mean, Google
Chromecast
should take advantage of the silliness of their name and play with the silliness of the word dongle. It's like the
And
Google
to
dong.
be honest, Google Cast or Google Chromecast really felt like they were doing that. It was
Yeah.
a giant Chrome logo and looked
Yeah.
ridiculous. And
Which was also weird branding, attaching the streaming device to a web browser.
Yeah.
Now, granted, you had some direct functionality with the Chrome tab
which
stuff,
is
but-
only doubly complicated because the whole reason that the word Chrome is associated with Google is that among the engineers, while they were writing stuff, they're like, don't put fancy crap on there. No Chrome. No Chrome. That was the thing. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and so eventually they found themselves saying the word Chrome a lot. They're like, Chrome's kind of fun to say. Why don't we just call it Chrome?
Sounds shiny.
But it was definitely intended originally as a derogatory remark.
Wow.
What else we got?
One other bit of news here on how to watch. Hulu is rolling out a traditional channel guide for its Hulu Live service. The guide will show up in the Hulu apps for Xbox One, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, and Nintendo Switch first, with more apps coming later. The guide works like most guides, with the addition of an option to watch the last 10 channels you've watched. Another new addition is part of the menu that shows you the last channel that you were watching, so you kind of a recall feature.
So this is interesting. I'm not inherently in love with the channel guide of anything, although it is comfortable and familiar, and I do like having it as an anchor, but I don't like the noise of all the channels that I don't watch. This seems like a very elegant solution of basically the last 10 channels you watch are probably the only channels you'll ever watch.
Sure.
So the fact that if it just kind of automatically whittles them down, like, hey man, do you want to see all the channels or just the 10 you care
I
about?
would want to have like a box on the side though that like flashes through new stuff. That's like, just little things so I can go, oh wait, I didn't realize that was on there. I don't want it exclusively. I'm not like
And
the
you'll
old
get that.
man in my cave, going like,
Yeah,
get out
sure,
my
sure.
yard. But I hate Hulu's menu. It's the worst.
It's no
of
good.
all of them, it's the worst.
I only see it through my kids' logins. So as a result, I see the very simplified, pretty thing.
Yeah.
That, unless the only other time I see it is when I'm looking for something, which is on Hulu. All I watch is The Prophet and Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah.
In which case, I'm just typing in those words and then they show up for me.
Yeah. I don't like the new Hulu UI. It's especially on TV where it's one full screen option at a time. You don't know what you're clicking over to, or rather, like if I'm scrolling to see more shows, I don't know what the next show I'm scrolling down to see is, which is tough because it's the opposite of sort of Netflix's, which is where it's trying to show you as many options to entice you.
I
It's
like
so
being
weird.
teased with options. I do not like self-starting things just because I paused for more than half a second on them. That it drives me up the
Is
frickin'
that a
wall.
dig on Netflix?
Yeah, that drives didn't that drive everyone up the wall? Who likes that?
I don't.
I don't really have a problem with it.
Well,
No,
I-
It's especially smart with the stand-up comedy specials because, like, by the time you think, oh, I gotta mute that, they're already halfway through the joke setup, and then you linger. You're like, well, I don't know. How does this pay off? You know?
Yeah, I actually had that experience last week where I was looking through stuff and I was like, I don't know, is anything good on here? And it started playing a trailer for one of these comedy specials. I was like, this is a good use of this feature, but a lot of times I'm scrolling through just to see if I will even like something based off the written text. And the written text goes away before you can finish, before the autoplay starts. So it's like, if you just gave it a longer delay, because they're not going to get rid of it. They said that they're not going to get rid of it.
yeah. They're sticking by they got a lot of criticism for it. And
I
they
am
were like,
certain
nope.
in some boardroom meeting, people were able to point to a 42% uptick in watch time as a result of this auto rollout fee, or autoplay
Could
fee.
be as little as 3%, and they'd still go for it. You know,
Could be.
Or maybe it's the opposite, where they don't want you to think too much about what you're watching. They want you to scroll through more options quickly so you don't get the autoplay video. And you say, oh, okay, this is fine. Just put it on. I don't want to see the thing.
I'd hate to say it, but to my generation, pre-internet, there was comfort associated with turning on a television and leaving it on in the background. And so if adding an autoplay feature lets you fill the room with conversation that makes you feel comfortable, then I understand.
it'd just
why
be
they
nice
do
if
it.
you could turn it off. That's all I'm saying. To have it is fine.
I mean, you can. It's called volume. Yeah, you don't have an 8-channel slider right next to your.
But you're gonna do it on TV, where like, oh, I'm gonna get my TV remote and mute it because I'm browsing.
I will.
You would
No,
never do that.
that's one of the things. It's very easy to just hit mute on there.
I like Shutter the best, so that's just me.
Okay. Shall we move on to what to watch?
In Under Surveillance.
Yes.
Okay, we shall.
Y'all got little intro sequences for everything.
That's right.
Guys, YouTube Red's Cobra Kai debuted 2 weeks ago, and it's been greenlit already for a second season in 2019. Also, hey, guess what? We're going to talk about it in spoiler in time. Spoiler alert, I liked it quite a bit.
I was mixed on it. I was a little mixed on it. I saw the good things.
Okay.
So you were more wax on, and you were more wax off.
They make a really good joke about that in the first episode.
They do. We'll save everything else about it. Something non-spoilery, non-content related was I did think it was really, really interesting the way I had not spent a lot of time in the YouTube Red ecosystem. And so they do a really good job of setting up the playlist such that you're like, oh, I've heard that the first 2 episodes are for free. So you type in Cobra Kai in YouTube and it says Cobra Kai episode 1. And then you see off to the right, you see 10 episodes with run times, 28 minutes, 32 minutes, 24 minutes, and so on. And so you click the first one, you click the second one, and then you're like, well, I guess I want to watch a third. And you click a third and it doesn't say, hey, third one is behind a paywall. Instead, it just starts playing as if you're watching the episode. And then 2 minutes in, it becomes clear that this is a trailer for the third episode.
Oh, man.
And the 4th episode is a trailer for the 4th episode. And the 5th episode is a trailer for the 5th episode. But the run times are listed as the full run times, which I found out is what they do for all of the YouTube Reds, right?
Well, and for movies that you can rent on YouTube, if you ever click, like, say you typed in The Dark Knight and you saw it in the first result and you clicked on it thinking it was the movie, you'd see the trailer, right? Where you would watch the movie.
Meanwhile, W. Scottis1 in the chat has a very good point. Remember, if you have YouTube TV, if you have the cable service, you can watch all the YouTube Red originals without subscribing to YouTube Red. Even if you don't have any of it, if you were alive and saw Karate Kid in the theater, I think you'll really dig Cobra Kai.
Yeah, I think it's compared to the other YouTube Red stuff, it's a breath of fresh air. I'll talk about it a little bit later.
Okay,
but
it'll be fun.
It's. I think a lot of people will like it.
Talk about the smaller networks that might look at picking up The Expanse.
Oh yeah, you know what?
viewers.
YouTube Red original. But
That'd be
again,
perfect.
I just worry about the expense of The Expanse. It looks like an expansive budgeted show.
Hey Brian.
Yes.
You know how you love all of these great new show concepts coming to Apple's new video something?
I knew you were digging it. Okay, go ahead.
How about this? Apple's releasing Carpool Karaoke Season 1 for free through their TV app week by week. And Season 2 has been greenlit for a second season on the Apple Music service.
So week by week, this just means that they're taking what currently exists behind the paywall and releasing it outside of the paywall. Well, but instead of all at once, they're doing it one episode at a time, week over week.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
So this is a show where you're paying to see celebrities just sing their songs in a car.
Yeah.
Well, but also
have
like
we-
actors and stuff.
Wasn't this the final
not
stage
wrong.
of moving into idiocracy? Was this the final step? We're not there yet.
Comedians in cars getting their balls kicked.
You could make the same argument against Twitch.tv. Wait, you're just watching other people play video games? But that is the childhood experience we had. Is you would go down to your friend's house, and not all of you could play the same game at the same time. Many of you would sit on the couch while people took turns, and whoever was the best, everybody else sat around and watched. That is just a virtualization of that experience that brings a lot of people joy and a lot of money to Amazon.
It's not enough to know just see an ass farting. You've got to know whose ass it is and why it's farting,
yes,
Brian.
all of that.
The first episode of season 1's already now on the Apple TV app. New ones are coming every Friday.
All right, so tell me what you think of this, Bryce. Kevin Bacon tweeted a link to a trailer for a TV show version of Tremors. Tremors, the early 90s? Well, that was early 90s, right?
I want to say early 90s.
It was like a send up an homage to B movies.
Fred Ward, who was also going to be in this.
Oh, that's
as
right.
well. He's not in the trailer, but he was going to be in the show.
Also, Brian Gross from Family Ties. Remember he was the crazy gun nut?
Yeah, he was the one guy who's been in every single one of the movies.
Kevin Bacon and Blumhouse have been working on the series, but SyFy apparently passed on the pilot. IO9 points out the series Tremors may be put off by the idea that graboids disappeared after the first film, invalidating all 5 sequels.
This is a Tremors TV show we're talking about.
Correct.
The second Tremors television show, for the record.
Oh, that's right. There was a first one.
There was.
Was that a Fox joint?
I think it was just
or?
one 13-episode season, although they wanted more, where it was like, and it was with the guy, Gross. What's his name? Grossman? Is it just Gross?
Brian Gross?
Is it Brian? I want to say
Yeah.
it was, that's
I remember because my name is
it
Brian.
Brian Gross?
Yeah, the
Okay.
bearded guy from Family Ties.
But yeah, it was like they were like, well, we're going to figure out a way to live with this one big graboid in the town.
Oh,
like,
wow.
he'll be our friend.
Oh, so they
or
basically
something.
converted it to Godzilla the animated series?
I guess. I don't know. I never watched it, but there's like they just put out the latest Tremors movie, A Cold Day in Hell, which I had a lot of fun with, for the record.
So
with now Jamie Kennedy playing the new reoccurring character in there as well.
I have not kept up with the Tremors franchise or anything Jamie Kennedy's been doing in the
Fair
past 2
enough.
decades.
Well, you're missing
but
out,
that sounds
man.
about right.
The
math on
perfect
that.
Venn diagram,
math
then.
on
It
that
was a
works.
match made in heaven.
Fans, it sounds weird saying big fans of the Tremors series, but I guess they're out there. We're upset by this because it ignores all the
invalidated
movies.
the canon.
It just invalidated all the canon. It was like, but why?
So here's what I found interesting is Kevin Bacon tweeting out a failed pilot preview. Is that like a backdoor kind of like, this happened? Anybody want? I'm just saying.
It seems likely. I mean,
If this gets
perfect time
picked
for it.
up and the Lock and Key pilot did not get picked up, I'm calling shenanigans.
You're gonna punch the internet right in its nose.
I really
All right.
am. Also, Vincenzo Natali directed this pilot, who did Cube, the original movie.
Oh, wow,
Cube,
yeah.
and Splice. If you ever
Cube
saw
was
that?
the one with the torture
Yeah,
devices
with
in each room.
well, it was
Yeah.
like it was pre-Saw, but
Yeah.
sort of sci-fi.
Yeah.
you know?
It was Saw in a big white background.
It was like a big trap maze that every room had various traps in it, and you had to figure out mathematical equations to get through.
oh,
Who
that
to
sounds
sacrifice.
That sounds like a fun game.
It was really good.
I like math.
Yeah.
Justin Roiland took to Twitter to announce there are at least 70 more episodes of Rick and Morty now officially in the works. Adult Swim says the new episodes are part of a long-term deal with the network. This is probably Adult Swim's first show to get syndication.
Yeah. Okay. So we were talking about this before the show. It seems like a lot of places are just getting over that magic 100 number. Like, just like what's the check we got to write to hit profitability? Where can we go straight to syndication?
Because if you look at something and you can say, okay, the early impressions of this are good, you have this amount of fan base, you've created this splash, expecting that there will be a trail off and that there's a payday after 100.
Here's what I suspect is keep an eye out over the next, I don't know, we'll say 3 to 7 years for that 100 episode equals syndication equals profitability thing to evaporate, because it seems like we're in the later days. Like that 100 episodes is an artifact of a time that's no longer around. Used to be that 100 episodes indicated that you roughly spent this amount of money, you roughly were reaching this many people, which roughly means it's worth it to peddle your show on
Yeah, you could sell it
markets.
to other markets because then that was enough episodes that was
right.
worth it for the package.
And whereas if you just, if you have 100 episodes because somebody just wrote a check to get you straight to 100, that undercuts the supposed value of having hit that. And I wouldn't be surprised if years from now that undercuts that perceived value.
I actually, thinking about this, this actually feels like I'm surprised we hadn't seen this yet, because talking about, okay, you're trying to reach other TV markets, you're trying to reach other cable or broadcast channels for a syndication deal, but with the rise of Hulu's and Netflix's, you know,
Usually you're
shopped
excited about
something like-
syndication for two things, because you get to reharvest on the existing market. So like Seinfeld becomes a valued property. Now all of a sudden, all the networks that couldn't afford Seinfeld primetime, now they get to throw it at 3:00, and they know that there's reliably numbers that they can attract to it. But also don't forget about all the secondary markets where stuff, you know, like it's interesting when I could see Hacking the System hitting, you know, some other markets, not that it's in syndication, but that, you know, internationally, some markets, they're like, oh, this is doing well over here. Let's throw it out over there.
You remember when TNT was just the Law and Order channel, pretty
Yes.
much? And that's not even their show. But there would be like days
all
that was all that was on TNT.
or like Spike with Cops.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Or G4
Spike
with
was-
Cops.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, yeah, I know.
No, but as far as this goes, the 70 episodes, the one thing I'll tell you, I'm a big fan of Harmontown. I mean, yes, Dan Harmon is a misanthrope. He doesn't want to be, and that's why it's interesting. He admits, I hate people. I wish I didn't. I'm trying to be a better man, and it's fascinating to hear him fail over and over again. But he's talked about the fans. Everyone likes to say, you know those fans. You know who you are, those Rick and Morty fans. Although I think every big fan base has fans just as bad. It's
Sure.
just their outburst was just so absurd it made the news. Yeah. But you know he's going to be doing an episode about those fans.
Sure, but hopefully he'll do it with the class of sophistication with which he brought what he learned from therapy in the Pickle Rick episode. You know, like I think it'll be really interesting.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what he does next.
Meanwhile, Jon Favreau says the forthcoming live Star Wars action series will be set 7 years after the events of Return of the Jedi and 23 years before the events of The Force Awakens.
What?
It'll use, as is written here, Jungle Book level CG to create aliens, so not puppeteering, not following in the footsteps of J.J. Abrams. Half the season has been written already. Disney is expected to use the show as one of its launch titles for its over-the-top digital service coming in late 2019. I like an awful lot about this.
One of 3 Star Wars shows, apparently, that will be on that launching on that, including the follow-up to Rebels by the same creator.
Resistance, I believe. We talked about that last week.
Yeah. And we're still waiting on the third one, right?
I don't
so?
Or I thought the number was 2, but if you're telling me
I'd
3,
heard they had said 3.
Okay,
yeah,
might
but
be
they just
3.
haven't said what any of the details about what the third one is yet. I don't believe.
All right.
But I wouldn't be surprised if there's more than that in the works. To be honest, Disney knows which side their bread is buttered on.
Yeah. In Netflix shopping list news, Netflix has ordered and acquired a handful of new shows, including a scripted comedy from RuPaul and Michael Patrick King called AJ and the Queen. Netflix also acquired the non-Chinese rights to the animated children's film Next Gen at $30 million. Deadline estimated it was the biggest buy at Cannes. Netflix also ordered a new series from Ricky Gervais called Afterlife, about a man who, following the death of his wife, chooses to punish the world, much to the chagrin of his friends and family. This is, I believe, Netflix's 4th production with Ricky Gervais. Finally, Netflix has picked up the rights to Stephen King and Joe Hill's novella In the Tall Grass. They supposedly plan to make a film starring James Marsden, to be directed by Vincenzo Natali, known for Cube and Splice also. The story is about siblings who can't leave a field of tall grass after hearing a little boy crying for help.
James Marsden, Spike from Buffy, is that the one?
No,
That's Marsters.
Yeah, Marsters.
King
Yeah.
of the guy from Westworld.
James Marsden. Yeah, I always get him
Cyclops.
mixed up. Yeah. Oh, that's right. Okay.
Any of these shows tick
So
your
I was surprised
radar?
to see that the RuPaul thing was not a reality show. It's a narrative fiction.
It's scripted comedy.
That sounds really interesting to me. And
Ryan Murphy's doing another one that sounds a lot like it that's coming out, except it's taking place in the 80s in New York City.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Afterlife, Ricky Gervais. I figured there's got to be a reason Netflix keep coming back to Ricky.
I mean, same for the Adam Sandler stuff. Adam Sandler just had another new movie come out on Netflix the week of, all sorts of promotion, and it seems to be doing well for Netflix.
Yeah.
And I mean, it sounds autobiographical, quite frankly.
Is that he's a miserable D-word?
Who goes around and just says whatever's off the top of his head, regardless of if it's going to piss
and all of his
anyone
friends
off
try
or
to
not.
get together like, hey, have you thought about going back to being polite instead of having this epiphany?
I think he's hysterical, but I also totally understand why people can't stand him.
I believe it.
Did you read In the Tall Grass, Brian?
I did not.
It's a novella.
I just wrapped up another book, so I think I can.
I've read
grab
the
audiobook
Wikipedia
for it.
page about it,
Oh,
and
okay.
it looked interesting. It looked like sort of like once you go past the level of the grass, you're kind of trapped in sort of a metaphysical maze, of like multi-dimensional maze.
Feels a little bit like Annihilation in that regard.
Yeah, and it
where
says sometimes the person you go in with is right there with you. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes there's other people.
I have a soft spot for all of that. Anything that represents that dreamlike quality, that dream logic really well. That's one of the. That's why I like Annihilation
so much,
a lot. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's why I love Legion so much.
Oh
too.
yeah, to a point.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
We'll talk about that in spoiling.
But Joe Hill co-wrote that book with Stephen King.
Yeah.
His son, who now our buddy Cargill apparently is really good friends with.
Yeah. Wait, is he friends? I hadn't heard that. He hadn't
Did
mentioned
he
that.
not drop that one yet? He talks about it.
How is he with
nonstop.
Megan McCain? Are they friends?
I think they might be
Okay,
friends.
all right,
Yeah.
All right.
All right, let's talk about what we've been watching, Chris. Let's start with you. What have you been watching lately, man?
Well, there were two shows that just wrapped up relatively recently that I really fell in love with. One is Counterpart, which is on Starz.
Oh, congratulations!
Yeah.
What do you what do you think?
What,
Welcome to the fold.
Oh, are
is
you a
what I
guy who
mean.
likes that show?
Oh
as
yeah,
well?
no, we loved it. We loved it.
Oh
yeah.
my god, it's so intense.
Yeah.
I'd watched the first episode. I was like, this is good, but I'm gonna wait and see what everybody else is saying about it as it goes along. And Martin comes to me. He's like, dude, are you watching Counterpart? I was like, okay, guess I gotta
Counterpart
watch it now.
is dense.
It's like John Le Carre's like sci-fi movie, It's just so intense and there's so much stuff going on, and I can't wait to see what happens. So I love
Visually,
it,
it's such a treat. It's one of those. There are some movies, forgive me for putting it this way. There's some movies and TV shows I could play Hearthstone during, and some that I'm like, it's just not an option. Like Counterpart is one of those. It's like, hey man, don't even bother unless you're giving it your full attention and soaking in every rich visual and thinking about the chess game unfolding in front of your eyes.
Oh yeah, it's so smart. It's just unbelievable. The other big one for me, and I'm just listing shows that just had their first season. Lots of shit I'm watching is Barry on HBO.
So I only watched the first episode and I liked it,
Keep
but I didn't go
going.
nuts.
Keep going.
Okay.
Yeah,
Pays
it
off?
gets really intense.
Okay.
Like I know it doesn't seem like a show that's going to go towards the intense, but
It just seemed a little.
holy cow.
Okay. All right.
This is Bill Hader, of course, playing a guy who works for Stephen Root. He's an ex-military guy, and now he works as a hitman, but he has an experience in L.A. where he kind of falls ass backwards into becoming part of an acting troupe.
Yep.
And he kind of falls in love with it and decides, I've got to find a way out of this hitman life because I just want to be a normal person. And it is
It's a
so-
normal, of course, being an actor
Oh, well,
because
right,
their lives
an
are
actor.
normal.
Well, there's a lot of fun had at that expense. And it's one of those shows where like, like a lot of comedies of that type or dramedies where it's like he's the only sane person in an insane universe.
Sure.
but
Everybody's wrapped up
he's
in their own reality.
Incapable of really understanding. Yeah, it's because this is the world he's always been in. But as a viewer, you're like, he's the only person who seems sane.
Sure.
And yet he's the killer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's the only one with the real job.
Yeah, well, no.
Everybody
Oh my
else
gosh.
is living in fantasy
It's
land.
the Gross Point Blank bit where John what's his
Cusack?
name? John Cusack goes his mini driver's dad. He goes, so what are you doing these days? He's like, I'm a hired killer. He's like, oh good, there's a lot of growth potential in that.
Meanwhile, I watched the first 4 episodes of Cobra Kai. I watched the latest Westworld.
Oh, you only watched 4? You made it sound like you watched all of them.
Wait, it felt like all of them. We couldn't stop, man. Those were potato chips. We were gobbling them all up. And then I did get caught up, or somewhat caught up, on episodes 2 and 3 of season 2 of Legion, which we'll talk about in spoiler in time. We're going to hold off on Deadwood until
Deadwood?
That's our archive show. So we go back week over week on one show at every time.
Will the new Deadwood miniseries ever really happen? They're saying it will. Brian, what do you think?
Well, they haven't even said it's a miniseries. All they said is a script was turned in. So we
Right.
don't know if it's going to be a
Movie,
standalone
series,
movie or
miniseries.
a reboot of anything.
And
We'll
that-
see.
Timothy Olyphant just got signed on. It looks like he's signing on to something big right now. So I was like,
Fingers crossed.
no, but
We'll
it
see.
wasn't that. It was something else.
I also watched a little bit of Cobra Kai, caught up on Westworld and the same episodes of Legion as you did, Brian. I also have been rewatching *Halt and Catch Fire*, and I don't know, I really like it, even though there's a weird element of like, oh, this is how I would rewrite history and discover all the great big technologies of the future. I watched Cobra Kai, and I was like, okay, this is really good. This is a good show. And I was like, well, I'm on the originals tab in YouTube.
Oh, you dove in and you're like, maybe they're all this good.
So, well, no, I wasn't thinking that at all.
Okay.
But I went in and watched a few different pilots of various shows. Lifeline, which is like a sci-fi time travel sort of thing, where you send people into the future to prevent people from dying because you can tell that they're going to die about 30 days ahead of time.
Sure.
But for some reason, you can't just like lock them away because they tried that and that doesn't work. Good, cheesy sci-fi cop drama thing. Do you want to see a dead body with Rob Hubel and a
I
bunch
thought
of...
you were just asking me for a second.
Yeah,
That was
all
really
right.
awkward. That's inappropriate.
I've been waiting for my own Stand By Me, and here we go. All these years. Finally,
do you want to see a dead body? It's pretty good. Like, there's a lot of like comedy actors that you would know probably, but it feels a little like pointless. It's mostly just like Rob Hubel trying to get people to spend time with him, and like them trying to make an adventure as they go from wherever they were to go see an actual dead body. Well, a dead body.
Sure.
Kind of funny, kind of a little long for what it is. Apparently that was a Funny or Die skit that they just made into a show. What was the other one? Youth and Consequences was a show I saw like as a trailer in front of a movie. And it's this like teen girls kind of being mean girls in a high school, but there's murders and stuff going on. And I couldn't get it at all because it kind of felt like it was trying to be a comedy, but not like a black comedy, but still trying to be really lighthearted when the very first thing that happens is like a huge suicide in a school.
It sounds like what it was missing was Kristen Bell as a high school student.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great.
She can still play it.
What was the one last thing I saw? Good Game. Good Game I actually kind of liked. This is from like Starburns and the Game Grumps guys.
Oh, that's right.
They play like an esports team, and it's interesting.
This is narrative fiction that takes place among esports characters.
Right. It's two broke guys who are like, hey, we're broke and you can make $1 million if you have a good esports team. So we're going to make one. And it's well written. It's from Starburns Entertainment. So there's like, it's well made. And Danny and Aaron, who are the lead actors, are good actors. It's just a little confusing who this is supposed to be for, whether it's for people who really know MOBA games.
Right.
Or if it's for people who don't know a lot about video games. I kind of felt like I didn't know who this was supposed to be for.
It sounds like there were moments of confusion where like, oh, I guess if I knew more about ice hockey, this ice hockey movie would make a lot more sense.
Yeah, because these MOBA games are very hard to like make feel cinematic because they're just real-time strategy games.
Sure.
And it's a lot of clicking. And so you have to make it about the stuff around it.
Yeah.
But out of everything, that was probably the one I will probably watch a little more of.
Can I throw out something here to,
Sure.
I'm sure all the studio executives who are watching this who work in television.
Yeah.
Because, well, you never know, Brian.
Yeah,
Maybe.
hey, go on. Look, they're all listening.
You guys are really into reboots and retcons and years later sequels things right now. And you're also really into like parallel universes. Where's my fucking new Sliders show is what I want to know.
Oh, dude.
Where is it?
The new Sliders.
I've
It's
been
all the
waiting-
offspring of the old Sliders.
no,
or better yet, no, bring back the old Sliders. What are they doing?
Well, yeah, exactly.
John Rhys Davies. Name one thing he's done since Sliders.
He was in an Indiana Jones movie.
Well,
Name two things.
also Lord of the Rings. He was Gimli.
Name three things.
He was in the Wing Commander original video game.
He's been doing a lot of things then.
It can be with an entirely new cast. Yes, I would be okay with that.
I would disagree. I think it should be the old cast, but that's fine.
Yeah, and leave out all the...
they're tied. What about a version of Sliders where they're still sliding 20 years and they
Yes.
just have no F words left to give?
And they run into the guy from Quantum Leap.
Scott Bakula. That'd be amazing. Anything else? Do we have something on the lookout?
Yeah, we got something on the lookout. Our boss David shared a new pick with us. He writes, "Hi Bryce, Brian, no Tom, Jackie somewhere in the background, and guest. I discovered a new show on Hulu that I binge watched over the weekend. It's been available for about 2 months now. The show is produced by Paul Reiser, aka the dude from Aliens. It's called There's Johnny. It's a show that's kind of brilliant. It's a period piece of from the 1972 season of The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. The first season involves a 19-year-old kid who gets a job on The Tonight Show right before the show's 10-year anniversary. There's Johnny brilliantly doesn't cast an actor to play Johnny Carson. They just use archive footage and specifically framed shots of an actor to hide Johnny's face. The first season is 10 30-minute episodes, and with the TV cancellation apocalypse that happened last weekend, I would strongly recommend everyone watch watch the show now. You should also watch the additional 48-minute documentary on how TV was involved with The Tonight Show over its 60 years. You can find that in the extra clips of There's Johnny on Hulu. This is a Hulu original, and I would definitely watch season 2 if they ever make it. From Dave Pick in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. Thank you.
I love this trend of the 1-2 punch of stuff that's based on a true story and it's totally fictionalized and they're able to tell whatever story they want. And then you finish, you're like, that was really fun. I want to know what the real story is. And you dive in. You know, we saw that with Polka King.
Yes, that's
and
right.
the king of polka.
The man who would be Polka
the man
King?
who would be Polka King or whatever. I'm gonna get it right one of these
One
days.
day.
The Jack Black Polka King is amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm totally down for all of this.
Yeah. If you got something we should be on the lookout for, email cordkillers@gmail.com. Put on the lookout.
Hey, quick reminder, we support ourselves doing a whole bunch of independent stuff. If you have not checked out a little thing called themodernrogue.com, we have daily articles every single weekday. I was strangely touched by our editor-in-chief's article, A Word of Advice to My Graduating Son. He wrote some heavy-duty stuff about what it means. Like, everybody's going to say, welcome to the real world. And he makes the case of, no, you've always been in the real world. You've worked a 9-to-5 job. You've what you have is harder because you don't get to pick your subjects. Everyone tells you what to do. At least when getting a job, you get to do what you want to do. And
maybe this time take the blue pill and see how
Go
deep
back
the
to
rabbit
sleep.
hole goes.
Yeah, man, it's fantastic stuff. I'm really, really proud of it. Add it to your RSS feed. Head on over to themodernrogue.com and just read a few articles. I think you're going to dig it.
Very cool. Well, now it's time for the front lines.
That's good.
Frontlines!
Hey, man, NBC picked up Brooklyn Nine-Nine after Hulu and Netflix pass. You were saying this is a Fox joint that ended up at NBC?
Well, it aired on Fox, but if you remember House, remember the show House?
Yeah, sure.
That was also made by Universal. So Universal made Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Universal is a part of the NBC family. And so either NBC got first crack at it or just decided, hey, we already have the digital streaming rights through Hulu, so we'll just pick it up and air it on NBC.
Yeah, partially because NBC thinks. I mean, NBC the network is its own unique feel, identity that they put certain sorts of things on, but they have a huge production company. NBC Universal has been producing shows for a long time for other people. Yeah, I mean, why not? If they're like, you know what, obviously there's more than enough of a following on this. And it's not like it's so crazy there's any reason that it's exclusively a Fox show.
Right.
I mean, I get why they were like, this feels more like a Fox show than an NBC show, but maybe this is exactly the blood that NBC needs to feel like it's not turning into a corpse like it actually is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. For the first time, Roku made more money off of ads and licensing fees than from hardware sales. Roku brought in $61.5 million from devices in Q1 and $75.1 million from advertising and licensing fees. The company beat expectations with $136.6 million in revenue, up from $100.1 million last year, and a loss of 7 cents a share, down from a loss of 79 cents a share last year. Roku also counted 20.8 million active accounts, up from 14.2 million a year ago. Half of those users don't have cable. Also, half of those new users came in from TVs that have Roku's built in. Also, another statistic, 1 in 4 TVs sold in the US this quarter had Roku software built in, like TCL devices.
This is huge, huge news because it suggests that Roku is becoming a more powerful platform than it was a hardware sales. I mean, once you have a platform, once what you really have, your real asset is attention, that is a self-sustaining thing as long as the attention is there. And the fact that Roku is built into half of all the TVs coming out in the United States suggests that they're going to have a lot of attention for a very long time, which means Roku suddenly went from a bit player in the online TV space to it's the 800-pound gorilla. Sorry, Apple.
I mean, it could be the TV OS manufacturers use from now on.
Yeah.
You know?
And it helps that they have a tremendous, momentum, lots of experience.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bloomberg sources, I said that word right, says
Bloomberg.
Bloomberg says resistance is futile.
I was going to take it if you weren't.
Bloomberg sources say Apple plans to begin selling subscriptions to certain video services directly via its TV app rather than asking users to subscribe to them through apps individually downloaded from the App Store. This might pave the way for Apple's original content to be available as a subscription in the TV app as well. So in other words, becoming more like the way Amazon ecosystem handles stuff, because in Amazon you could sign up for Stars and for HBO, and they're easy to unsubscribe as modules inside of that ecosystem.
Right. But I also believe that you can watch those within the Amazon website. And so Amazon is either directly connecting to HBO CDN or is mirroring content on HBO CDN, not just sending people to the HBO Now app or the HBO Go app,
I don't think I've tried watching. I think I signed up for HBO through Amazon, and then I've just used HBO Now ever since. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have that right or not.
I'm pressed. They just let me watch the stuff on the press portal.
Oh, you
Sorry.
We're pressed too. What am I doing paying for stuff like a sucker?
I can show you how.
We'll talk off mic. Finally, FX and Hulu have acquired the rights to broadcast the New York Times' 30-minute documentary news series called The Weekly. FX gets 30 episodes that will air on Sundays starting later this year. The next day, they'll be available on Hulu. This is a very similar concept to what we reported on either last week or the week before about BuzzFeed partnering with Netflix for a weekly show about BuzzFeed articles and the authors who were writing those.
These don't seem to, or at least in the BuzzFeed thing, I have not seen that explode into the pop cultural zeitgeist after that announcement. But I assume that people are just perceiving that it has enough potential to be a big deal. I certainly actually I don't want to say.
And I don't know that that's out yet. I think they had only just released a trailer for that.
Okay.
Whereas this New York Times thing is based, the show The Weekly is based off their podcast The Daily, which I believe is a similar concept.
Got it.
Talking about the authors of the stories that the New York Times is running.
Nice. Well, let's wrap things up by checking out the dispatches from the front.
Does anyone ever actually call you guys killers? They say,
Yeah.
Hey, killers.
Oh yeah. Get ready. Hey, killers. No. Actually, this one says Killers of Chords. I think there may be a more accurate way that MoviePass can market their plans by creating a new tier. There could be a daily plan, which is more accurate for the unlimited plan they're currently offering. And the new tier could be the weekly plan, which is the temporary plan they just eliminated, which was 1 movie per week, 4 per month. Maybe even a monthly plan, 1 per month, which could match the Cinemia $4.99 plan. That's from Ian.
Oh, thank you, Ian. Well, and that MoviePass plan that they had last month, where you could only get 4 movies a month, still sort of exists. For $8 a month, you could watch 3 movies a month, which is basically the same idea.
Man, I'll tell you what, I gotta commend MoviePass, because they're got to be capturing all this data. They got to be having all these analysts figuring out, like, they're playing a live football game in front of us, making these wild calls left and right. Yeah. They're like, change it, offer another plan. How's that doing? How much are they using? Well, fraud? Okay, throw a long bomb.
But I will tell you, just from social media, it is freaking out some of the people who use them. I've seen a lot of people go, nope, I'm done. And pull
frustrated
out.
by the inconsistency of what it offers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and we've heard MoviePass tease the idea of, okay, we're going to have another higher tier where you can see 3D movies or IMAX movies or these special events that we don't allow. But we have so much of this is just playing it by ear. We can only go off of how they're moving, and they're moving very quickly.
Yeah. Which I suspect is a smart move to do. It's a wild play, but I'm kind of excited to see that kind of pivoting.
Yeah, I mean, the alternative is they go under, they run out of money, and they
knew
down.
They were gambling. All the investors know they were gambling.
Yeah.
Good answer, Cordies.
Well, we've got another email here. Hey guys, it was funny listening to you dissect MoviePass's marketing of unlimited movies. In the UK, we have a self-regulatory organization for the advertising industry called the Advertising Standards Authority, the ASA. If something bugs us about the claims made by a company, we can simply raise it with the ASA, who will investigate and potentially tell them to change their messaging. Their website has a public database of all rulings and lists what people have complained about and whether the ASA agreed. It looks like asa.org.uk is the main website. Do you have an equivalent organization in the US? Thanks, Matt. I don't think we do. The FCC...
So the SEC handles regulatory, like the Security
Messaging.
and Exchange. I think SEC would probably be the closest one. Maybe the FCC, when it comes to, they certainly regulate when people are advertising certain things.
Yeah.
I think we have like an amalgam. Is there some other regulatory agency I'm not thinking of?
The Ad Council, is that a thing?
No, the Ad Council is a
Is that anything?
It's basically they do pro-social nonprofit. They tell you not to litter.
Is it
Yeah.
DARPA? Is it DARPA? It's always DARPA.
It's Dharma. It's the Dharma Initiative. Yeah,
Initiative.
that's what it is.
Out to defeat the forces of Greg. There's also the Better Business Bureau, which potentially
there we go.
could be about that.
Actually, the BBB is not a government
Yeah,
agency.
that's
They're
right.
private. In fact, that's one of the dings against them is that they're essentially like a Yelp type thing where they're like, you're like, oh, it'd be a real shame if you weren't a member of the Better Business Bureau. And,
Nuke Jello also suggests the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which is pretty.
the
recent.
FTC, that's what it is. The Federal Trade Commission.
Okay.
okay.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah. Thank you, Matt, for that email.
Hey, man, we're the knowers of things. That's the new name of our show.
All I know is the cigarette smoking man is in charge of it, whatever.
Hey, man, where can we see so much more of your beautiful, beautiful work, Chris Cox?
You can find me at the website that I own and run, oneofus.net, where we review all the movies because, they let us into the movies for free.
See,
We don't need a movie
I'm
pass.
paying like a sucker.
We review TV shows. We have all sorts of different podcasts about wrestling, about music, about all sorts of stuff. Check it out. It's a comedy format with like a sort of group conversation on everything, and it's a lot of fun.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Meanwhile, don't forget that you can see more of Cordkillers every Monday. We record at, 6 p.m. Central Time. Available at twitch.tv/nightattack and
Our website is cordkillers.com. Our email address is cordkillers@gmail.com, and we're live on
This guy's got it.
twitch.tv/nightattack, which is also carried on diamondglove.tv
Just-
Mondays
I
at
don't know,
7 p.m.
just let him do
Eastern,
everything.
Yeah.
4 p.m. Pacific.
Here's your Don Pardo over here.
We'll kill your course
Some of
next
them.
time. Hey guys, Brian and Tom here, and it's just the same old message at the end of the credits, just like always.
That's right, Brian. Nothing new here except your name showing up.
Oh my gosh,
because
I've
you
got a
just
name.
supported us on Patreon.
Yeah, all those $5 donors, look at that. That's your name in pixels. We're gonna make you famous, kid. Put your
There's
name in
some
pixels on
classic
the internet.
names in there, but some of you are new. Some of you aren't there. It's sad. What can they do, Brian?
I mean, they could go to patreon.com/Cordkillers and pledge $5 an episode and be one of these amazing people, like this one.
Amazing.
Oh, look at that name right there.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.